Alright, so this particular demo was kind of inspired by a guy that I follow on Instagram. And he was using different scenes from movies and simplifying them down using just kind of 2 value, 3 value, and so on with this kind of grayscale. What that allows us to do is see just the main composition. So for mine, I'm going to use a scene from the trailer for Leon the Professional. And that looks pretty good to me. I like that kind of intensity in his eyes. So I'm going to go ahead and do a screenshot. To do that, it is Shift Command and the number 4. And that gives you a little different reticle over your mouse. You can just drag and select it. Will automatically save it to your desktop, just like if you were doing a screenshot on your phone or something like that. So I opened it up in Photoshop. I'm going to make a new layer right there, drop the opacity for that layer so that while I'm painting, I'm going to be able to actually see underneath of what I'm actually painting. We're going to stick to just plain black and white, and I've got myself a nice little mouse here. Now, I've kind of squashed my mouse, given it a little bit of an angle that lets me draw a little bit easier. Going forward from here on out, a couple tips. Try your best to keep using the largest brush possible whenever you're painting. You can always shrink it down later, but try to stick with the largest brush that you can. Some other techniques that you want to think about as well. We later on in class will get into making our own brushes. For right now, you want to make sure that you have a very hard-edged brush. When you're done, it's going to look a little scratchy, it's going to look a little almost impressionistic, and that's okay. So the technique that we're using is called a grisaille. This directly translates to gray go, or a gray type painting. There's also a brunaille and a verdaille using monochrome green and monochrome brown. But really what we're trying to get here, you can see in this painting, is different levels, almost like chiseling, like a sculpture within our painting. So I've gone ahead, I've already got my black and white layers. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab a very mid-tone gray. I could hunt around all day long in my color picker here, or I could just type in the hex code 80, 80, 80. And that will give me exactly a mid-tone gray, which is exactly what I want. So whenever I was working on my black and white section here, there's definitely parts of it that I wasn't thrilled with. I had to kind of decide, is this white or is this black? And now with the gray, I can go back and do that kind of medium mid-tone. It's still going to look a little blobular, and that's probably okay for our purposes. We'll go through and take those gray values and divide them up later with a lighter gray and a darker gray. So I'm just thinking about what's highlighted, what's shadow, and what's right smack in between. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of paint that out real quick, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so my painting's got these mid-tones in it here, this kind of gray. He's looking pretty scratchy right now, and that's okay. What I want to do now is make yet another layer, only this time I'm going to use some darker grays where the black and the gray kind of touch, and I'll use some lighter grays where the gray and the white touch, and that way we're kind of smoothing that transition so it's not as rough or as challenging to the viewer. You could even go further than this. I'm only using 5 values for this demo, but you could use all the way up to 10 different values of gray if you wanted to. The smaller your paintbrush gets, the more values you add, the more realistic it's going to look. When we're done, it's still going to have a very painterly quality to it, and that is particularly because we are using one single hard-edged brush. In the future, with our next project, we're going to deal with making our own brush and dealing with giving that brush the ability to kind of fade out and blend a little bit. And that will wrap up our project.